Oh, until the end. Yep, man of mystery. That's our Frank.
It's a long time to get there.
Yeah. Uh, what Frank notes, I think it's pretty clear that if Shakespeare said, our dear Richard III quoted about his horses' equestrian interests, he must have had a stenographer nearby to write down famous last words or something of the sort. But it's wonderful, and we all know these things. I don't know whether we learn it in school or where all this comes from, but it is very interesting. And that we all know this name so well and associate it with evil. I know we bring up certain people in this, and everybody's going, "Oh, I just think they're so wonderful." And then, but you just see Richard III. I mean, this is like something like, one of those blotter tests when they give you those, and you have to make it into something. That's just, if you said Richard III, everybody go, "Ooh, boo, hiss." Valentine's, he wouldn't get any Valentine's. Understand how that would be cruel, isn't it? But we recall the little one, little Eddie, gone. How much do we know about him? Not a whole lot. He was about 12 when he's getting ready for his coronation. And what was the book that came out? A funny thing happened on the way to the coronation. Yeah, I know that was ugly, but he made it, and his Uncle Richard said, "Maybe I could help you with your orientation and Camp Crown or something, and you go to that. Bring your little brother along too, and uncles are supposed to love nephews." And so he was there with him, and something happened. And that was the end. Now, seriously, here is what was going on. Richard, as the younger brother, felt like he was about to get left out. I know it's ugly and shocking, but let's think if you were a Woodville, you're part of the Queen's family and you're hungry. You've been in, if I can use a swine analogy, you've been in the trough and you don't want anybody messing with your slop. I don't mean to be ugly, but I'm just telling you, it's good. I don't know a lot about hogs, but I do know that they do like their troughs. So we'll leave it, that agrarian imagery there. But all of that is to say that he knew he was going to get cut out. So he can go, "Oh, you're such a cute little fella. I'm so excited to be your uncle. Kitchy, kitchy, cool," whatever they say. I mean, it's like faking avuncular, love and patting him up. All of that, I think, is because I'm not sure there was any doubt in his mind that he was going to get cut. Not cut in the sense of killed, but just cut out of what he would have gotten under his brother. So I guess you might say somebody's got to go. And it isn't going to be Richard. It's got to be the nephews. Could it be that, well, we know health conditions were not the best. Could it be both boys got sick in the tower, had a little pneumonia, something? We'll never know. Then maybe, and again, this could be something on Showtime or HBO. Maybe he was too embarrassed when they got sick and died, and he said, and the mama said, you should have taken better care of them. And then they have to make up an elaborate story, and it could go on for weeks, a story like that. If you want to make it a soap opera, But you understand, I'm just suggesting there are alternatives to the commonly held story that they were in some way executed. Probably he simply ordered it. I don't think he did it, despite the movies, who like to make it obviously something he does. He has too many cocktails and, that kind of thing. And boy, when the Woodvilles found out, it's not pretty, as you can imagine. Again, if you were a Woodville, and I hate to be crude, meal ticket, yeah, because that's how they were going to run it. Because I really believe that. And I'm not being friendly to him, but I think you'll recall we have the image. And again, this beautiful and famous picture, I believe it's in the Royal Museum of Art in London. It makes them a little youngish, shall we say, because I think they are older, but the idea that he's trying to indicate, highly romantic, of course, is the two cute little children and the wicked agents of the Duke who do away with them. So all of this comes at a time, and I think this is very important to note. Richard basically seized the power, declaring himself regent, and had them declared illegitimate. And you might say, how could they be illegitimate? Well, you've heard of people, some of us who are from rural areas, folks running off, going, and you say, whoa, they're going to be married in Vegas, all of that. And then you say, well, how do you know? Well, they told me about it. I mean, and you say, is that real? Well, I mean, I'm sure the king sung about stuff like this back in the day. I mean, it's like Elvis. I'm thinking. I mean, the idea of burning fire and and all of that thing. Whatever the case, the whole marriage of Elizabeth to Edward, it's something he just comes in and says, I've met the right one. We're so in love. And oh, yes, Your Majesty. It's like that. Let's see some paperwork. People want, I know. And they say, well, we were in love and we had a special ceremony, that kind of thing. And we went to the Golden Cherry. And yeah, I know. Those of you who don't like, I've heard of this. I mean, this place, which, it's not the Hilton. No, or the Marriott. But I gather some creatures stay there. And there's sometimes there somewhat lurid things go on. But all of this then is to indicate that fait accompli. And Richard and others simply did not accept the legitimacy of the marriage. And the Parliament, I guess enough of its members agreed, figuring, I guess, like people who bet, the odds, they were just declared illegitimate. I'm sure the Queen had her Woodville agents who said, oh, it was a perfectly legitimate marriage and all of our 10 children are just coming out of the sacred vows that we made, and they're not little boo-boos. Because remember, sometimes love children can be legitimated, but at this point, Richard could care less about that. All he wants is for them to be declared illegitimate now, because then you're not eligible for the throne. So, guess who's the new king? Not you, little Dickie. It's that's how some people say it was. And then maybe one of the individuals who was serving Richard III said, should we off them, boss? He said, oh, no, just rough them up a little bit. And then, sometimes people go to extremes. Said, I'm sorry, we just went ahead and killed him. It was just going so well. And yet we just can't stop, like overdoing it. Now, Frank has already mentioned Sir Lawrence. God, isn't that amazing? For a man who was so incredibly handsome. 1955. And they married to the most beautiful woman in the world, Vivian Lee. But boy, they worked on that makeup a while, didn't they? I think he probably had that bump, some huge ward. They really made him ugly. But then I want you to see Sir Ian McKellen in 1995. Some of you may have seen this. I brought this up because you said they weren't doing Lucky Strikes in that time. They hadn't discovered the joys of nicotine, had they? No. But this is an adaptation, if you like it or not, of Richard III in 1935, maybe, with people with lots of uniforms and yeah, no filters. And there he is, Sir Ian. And does anybody recognize the woman? I'll be so impressed. See anybody? Okay. This is a Hollywood quiz for you. Who's the wife of Warren Beatty? There you go. You get extra credit. That is Annette Bening. Can you believe it? Yeah. That's what 30 years will do for you. Yeah. But she was cute. And then there's Robert Downey Jr. Yeah, there he is. So anyway, they're all around huffing and puffing and being ugly and mean but it's all in the 30s and they're all in these Art Deco buildings and it's okay. You can probably get it on one of those channels. But it's interesting if you like adaptations. And of course, just the idea of how you're able to play up this idea. And Sir Ian is still alive. Can you believe it? In his 90s. Yeah, so anyway, but the ultimate Richard III for me. No, you got to see this one. Yeah. Yes. I know. You loved him in The Godfather, but just always remember, yeah, Richard III. And can you imagine once he opens his mouth and you say, but you don't sound English? No. Isn't that sort of a Brooklyn accent? I don't think anybody would confuse you as a Yorkist monarch. But Al Pacino, one of the great stars, and you see all of the outfits. So he did the whole thing. It's probably covered in his book. I haven't read it yet, but his memoirs of his career. But yeah, everybody who's anybody has played Richard III at some point or other. And it's very interesting to think nobody has ever played him about. God, I love it. All of you little Woodvilles, every one of you, all 10 of you, you're so cute. Yeah. Maybe we can get some Tinker Toys for you, or, whatever you want to play with. No, all of them are wicked. And of course, they have a lot of psychological problems. They need counseling, medication, who knows, all that they need. But yeah, they're not getting it. Now, when we think of this, it goes by so fast. I mean, it's amazing. Again, I don't know about you, but I mean, 2 years to me is nothing. So 1483 to 1485, and we don't even get the whole year. So really, it's 1484 is the only full year we get. You come in, you do away with the nephews, then you get settled down, and that old Bosworth field happens, and you're gone. You're history, as they used to say. All of this is to say then that it is a very, very short period. And in every way that I can imagine, it was a sad time for him. And all this is covered by Sir Ian and dealing with the reality. Because remember, while I guess early deaths were not unexpected in the medical conditions of the day, I mean, to live to 50 was very nice. But when both his wife and son died, and you say, gee, that son sounds so familiar, I'm very happy and pleased, because I was hinting at would they know or would they not know? And to think you know gives me a lot of confidence, because we're talking of one of the Nevilles. And you say, really? Do you mean? Yes, I do. That was, in fact, the former daughter-in-law, Margaret of Anjou. And I feel so proud that you have all this put away in your genealogical pocketbook that you can pull out anytime you need it, which is not often, I'm sure. But seriously, he had married her, that is to say, Richard had married this woman, this Neville woman, who had been the teenage wife of Margaret of Anjou, and now the widow. After a very short courtship, she marries Richard, has a child by him, and then she and the child will then die in 1484. So, and there's nothing weird about it. In case you want something on Showtime, there's no clues, Clouseau or Miss Marple, nobody's coming to examine the library and have the pathologists come in. None of that. It just, well, you say health conditions were not exactly good. So he is a widower. And I don't know, most of us, I guess, would feel like, what's the purpose? Well, we all love power. But I think at the same time, his enemies, and there were legion. And I could put at the top of the list Elizabeth Woodville. I mean, could you imagine? Could you get up in the morning, do your exercises, and maybe have your whatever, and then you're saying, God, I hate him. I mean, this is not like you forget, and then you go back about midday and say, yeah, I really hate him a lot. No, I think you would remember that, wouldn't you? Be responsible for your children. So all of this is to say that he had a lot of enemies. And to add to those enemies, let's also remember the people who had been connected to the Lancastrian family. And you say, I thought they were dead. Oh, well, yeah. There are always people around. And they might have kept quiet about it for a while. But you know what? It comes back out. and they want that Lancastrian claim. And you say, but I thought Margaret of Anjou's son was dead. He is. But DNA will prevail. As all of you medical folk know, there are always people carrying the good DNA. So it's going to be tree time before you know it. Yeah. And you know what kind? The kind with lots of limbs. Yes. Ooh. What about that? Boy, that didn't take long, did it? I just thought this was a nice quickie trick. You know what I mean? It's like it'll fool you. Because then you'll think, yeah, I got all this down. You can walk around, show off your genealogical knowledge until somebody comes to you, says, yeah, but that's just part of the story. You know, bully. But seriously, this really does cut it down to size. You see Henry VI's son. And ignore that for a while and go back up to Catherine of Valois. Now, you think, how would she ever get over Henry V? I would say quickly, because you have to move along during this period. It's not like you can wear the widow's weed when you're like 19 or something. She was very young when Henry V died. She had to look after Henry VI, although I think daycare probably did a lot of the main facilities. So she was getting out, hitting the circle. And she met a striking Welshman of the nobility, Nat. You think an ex-French queen? French queen. Well, I should say Anglo-French queen would just date anybody. Of course not. Were they married? Let's just say love is the answer. Okay, it's so strong, it's powerful. You say, but what about the blood test? What about clergy? Okay, don't be a sport. I don't know if there were clergy involved. Let's just say it was a very serious relationship. I assume they lived together. I'm not sure that it would exactly been approved that someone of her status would have been legally married to a man who has rather famous descendants, Owen Tudor, and he was noble, but she was a French princess and an English queen. And they had a child, as you see, Edmund, and he was a great warrior. And associated with the Lancastrian. And you say, I wonder why. Well, don't you think maybe grandma Catherine of Valois had something to do with that? My first husband, he was really the king, and these darn Yorkists, that's not, that kind of thing. This is truly not hard to imagine that he comes from this background. We're talking, of course, about Edmund. Then look who Edmund's married. Yes, they're back. I told you, Neville's. They come in and these Beaufort. You can't keep them down. You go to any chart. I challenge you. Yeah. This weekend, after the game, maybe just say, I want to look at a chart and find one without a Beaufort on it. But they are there. You say love. Well, I don't know about that, but I know about power and connections. We want that. And we want breathing. Good, bad, or ugly, but we want them to breathe because that is the way it happens. So there's Beaufort. And you see where those Beauforts come from, just in case we've forgotten, and I know we haven't. The third wife, you see her, of John of Gaunt, Catherine Swynford, his longtime, would you say mistress, paramour, special friend, gal pal? I have so many sentiments. All of it, though, is to say that when the time was right, he married. Which is very unusual, I might add. But I've never thought of Catherine Swynford being some sort of wild gal, and just a nice friend. And then after he finished his 2 political marriages, then, and they were all the children. So they arranged for Parliament, and Parliament can be advised to make decisions, let's put it that way. They had the children legitimated for all purposes except the throne. And that's very important to know because you think, wow, I'm legal. You know, that's a very nice thing to find out when you're a teenager, I guess. You mean, really? I'm not? Oh, I thought I was just a love child. But no, Dad has decided to have you legalized. And so, but you can't be king. Okay. I had some hard time dealing with that, but yeah, bummer. But look at what I can do. I can marry people, breed with people, and then maybe family can get the throne. So Margaret marries Edmund. And then look what happens. Little Henry. And why do we care? Well, because we're just about to see. And we'll also see next time, our final time, and going on to 2026, because, God, if I had a trumpet right now, it would be blaring, the Tudors are coming to a building near you. Yeah. Stay tuned. Because there he is. I won't say the House of the Rising Sun, a popular song. Have you might not have heard of that, but that was a popular song. Yeah. I don't want to. So there's Richard III. There's Henry Tudor. I've just put him Henry of Wales. I thought that. Just think about a noble Welshman. Maybe we don't think about the noble Welsh enough. We just forget sometimes they had their nobles too. I mean, you got to have some oppressors everywhere, right? And I'm sure they had their interests in both Wales and England. So remember, he may have been reared by, who? Owen Tudor, Governor Valois, then Swynford. All of this is to say, yes, he's Welsh, but he has some big, big interests in England. I was reading the other day about the Battle of Tewkesbury. Yes. And one thing I found interesting was he was there, and I guess he got away. He escaped, because his side is kind of losing. So it's not like you're going to say, I want to hang around, I want to be a hero. No, I think maybe after halftime, after third quarter, you say, this has been real. It's adios, as we would say. But it's back to Wales. Yeah. Good, it's such a small place. Because he did escape Tewkesbury, and therefore he was able to go home and say, God, I hate Edward. I'm talking about Edward, who will be Edward IV. God, I hate him so much, that kind of thing. And, I love my Uncle Henry so much, and, all of that. And the family say, yeah, Tiger, keep, working out and getting ready for that day. That perhaps would be a reason why he would assert these claims, which are, as the books always say, slender. That was what I wanted you to see when you looked at that tree. And you said, that's not really substantial. I think you could definitely say that. It's a little of this, a little of that, but in the end, if you want some strong claims, this isn't it. However, when you look at the opposition in 1485, they are very, very weak, and that means Richard III. Why? Well, as that movie I was telling you about from the 1990s, everything he attempted seemed to go south. Even the programs that his brother had been responsible for. Oh, everybody just loved Edward Ford. He was so great. Party hardy. But now, when Luther becomes king, suddenly it's like you get an unfavorable rating. Is that fair? Maybe not, but that is certainly the way it appeared, economically and so forth. In other words, and it's difficult. I'm not in politics, but if you know people who are, I don't want to call them losers, but I'm going to say sometimes it appears that way. And I would say this guy, Richard III, he had every appearance of being a loser. And people will say, oh, your majesty, and kiss up a little bit. Give me your cheek. I want to give it a kiss. All of that to his face. But then they get a little bruise. Because they think he's not going to last. Why is it because of the death of his son? Maybe. I mean, who realistically would leave his throne too, as far as the Yorkist claims are concerned. I'm not sure he sat up nights worrying about that, although I'm sure he did genuinely grieve for his son. Nevertheless, now, when you have our young Henry, still something of a hero from the battle, even though it was a lost cause. But we never forget, we love our Lancasters and all that the Lancasters have meant for us. And the public can be fickle. You think there's all dead set on one, but yeah. I don't know if Richard had that one sparkling moment. And yeah, he made some mistakes, but we love him. Our Dickie boy and all of that. I just don't know if that's true, but it just got worse for him. And it's like, as I say, nothing he did or favored could bring him back. Henry actually did not have to do all that much. He basically must have raised an army. I don't know if they were old veterans from Lancastrian forces and maybe some mercenary Welshmen. Said, we got surefire. I don't think this was like, get behind my team, we are going to storm them, and all of that. But it was a small force of several hundred. And you say, but Richard has the royal forces. Well, sort of. First day, maybe we say the first inning. Yeah. By the second inning, a lot of them are saying, we really enjoyed this. There's been a lot of fun, but we need to get home. We have a sick cat we need to go see about, that kind of thing. And you say that hurts. Wouldn't you? I mean, if you were fighting in this battle to win, and then they say, we really want to stay with you and we want to wish you all the best. This has been real. Yeah, peace. Yeah, that would be the top. So all of this means that he's looking around and saying, maybe in French, quoi, what, where are you going? I love you all so very much. Yeah, we're gonna miss you. Well, why? It's like, I'm sorry to say, I don't think that the sentiment in behalf of Richard was very strong. Not to knock the tutors, but I'm just saying that Richard didn't have a lot going for him. Because if you ask me, let's go back to the Woodfords. Remember, they're still around. I mean, yeah, that generation they die off, but a new one they breed. Like, botany, they repopulate and a new set grows. And all of this means that the new ones want revenge. And so between Woodwolves and Lancastrians, let's all get on the bandwagon, as we used to say in American politics. Let's all get together and there's some, yeah, great cause. Down to Richard III. So, and I don't mean to take the thrill of 1485 away. Your summer, your t-shirts, your mugs. There's so much we could get. And if you think I'm wrong, go online and look it up. Oh, August 22nd. The Battle of Bosworth Field. And I'm sure there are probably books just on that one particular engagement, various aspects of it. But in point of fact, I'm not sure there was at any point that people would say, well, it's a close game, folks. We'll have to see who's going to come. I think it was pretty clear that Richard was going nowhere. And it just got worse as the time went on. That makes it, however, no less important. Because, of course, if you really want to know, when did the Wars of the Roses end? Because I know this keeps you up at night. I want you to feel, if anyone questions you, send them to me and I'll take care of them. If I have to hurt them, I will. They need to understand it's going to be the Battle of Bosworth Field and accept no other answer. They say, well, I think it was Tewksbury. And you say, yeah, we'll take that outside. No, we have to go on, I think, to Bosworth to understand the Lancastrians got their revenge. They did.
Oh, yeah.
I mean, you say, well, was Henry really a Lancastrian? No, but he was honorary. You know how they make people honorary? So I think that's what he was. He probably had a little Lancastrian doodad that he could wear or something. I love House of Lancaster, So all of this means that war is over. Is everybody going to get into peace and love? No. But I'm just saying that 100 Years' War is over. We lost Bordeaux, remember, 1453, as you well know. And then, of course, there's always the question of the end of the Wars of Roses. Now we have that, 1485. And what are we going to have without a war? Well, we're going to find out. They're still killing and fighting. But all of that, Bosworth Field, would be, if you're interested in military history, especially English military history, would be definitely a place you want to go because it's not too far from England. 2012 up through 2015. I know it became an incredible sight up in Leicester. See, Leicester's near Bosworth Field. You know, England's not a large place. We all remember that. And at the University of Leicester, they have their Department of Archaeology. And archaeologists like to dig. That's what I mean, history. But they dig and they have some interesting discoveries. And we know from our crime shows, we need these people because bodies, right? Dead bodies. And in this case, yes, they found a very important body. So they told. They told the world. That was 2012. It's hard to believe it was that long ago. Because, I mean, you talk about archaeology making the headlines, probably the London Times, all of that, and like King's body found. And yeah, see, I mean, this is better than anything we could do on BritBox or any of that. I mean, when you think about it, that's a lot of drinking tea, wouldn't you think? Or, people think, oh, I say, and all that. Oh, yeah. To see the bones, though, I thought that was. And I'm going to say, if you want to look good, don't be an archaeologist because I think they get, messed up. So you don't want to wear your best outfit. But that is the work they did. And you can see the Leicester parking sign, which came on because clearly, I think this was in many ways quite a joke. And if anybody had come back, they've had what now, 10, 12 years to come back and refute this. Because you say, in all of these centuries, wasn't there like where is Richard III committee? People forming, where did he go? Criminal discovery, investigation, and all of that. Some show that we could watch.
Argentina.
Yeah. I mean, it's like there apparently was very, well, I mean, vague interest, but I think people had enough other concerns that the modern field of archaeology had not reached its zenith until the 20th century. I was going to say 19th, but I would go on and say 20th. But obviously, this has to be accepted after all these years. And as they do so, they decided, amazingly to me, to have this major funeral. And if you're ever in Leicester, I don't know why you would be, but I mean, unless you have some kinfolk, maybe, you never know. Maybe some long descendants of John Gaunt, if you could hang at me. But Leicester's a nice town. But if you think about that, and you think about what an interest there is in the events leading to this big announcement, and then you think about taking the bones, then burying where? Somewhere Richard III wouldn't be, I can tell you that. If he had known they did his bones in some strong language, hell spot, going to a place of damnation. You say, why? Anglican, you see, I have it there in brackets. You say, well, they're nice people, aren't those Episcopal? Yeah, I like them, you like them, I know, but there was one church. So if there are any people who want to talk about Lollards, not now.
No laws.
To be buried in an Anglican cathedral, I find the height of amusement. And maybe the royal family of 2015 saw the irony in it as well. I'm not sure there was any opposition from the English Catholic prelate who would say, we want him, we want those bones, those are our bones. How dare you, Luther lover? You know, I think people have come to terms with the Reformation by now. But yeah, the 21st century, we understand. But I do find that interesting the way they did it. It's beautiful though, there in the Anglican Cathedral there, and see all the people. And even I thought that was kind of interesting that they all had their phones just like now, taking pictures as hard as they can go. And you think, if you just leave it alone, it'll be there for you tomorrow. But no, that's just not the way of the world. So it was quite the ceremony there in Leicester. So we say goodbye to Richard III, and I don't think any Woodvilles came to the mourn him or anybody else, as far as I'm aware, because most people had deserted him, that is, nobility, by the time of the Battle of Bunker Field. So you say, oh God, what did I say? Good riddance to bad rubbish. I mean, that's so mean, isn't it? But you think Shakespeare was writing in the Tudor period, and I suspect there would not be anybody out there who would say, don't you think this is a little harsh? Don't you think maybe Richard III made large contributions to charity or did something? No, I don't. We want a whole negative. It's all very negative. And if you join the Richard III Society, and there is one.
Oh, yeah.
So yeah, you can be a member if you go online, get full information. And you can go on all the reasons you should love Richard. Okay. His good points, his donations, and how he loved the Neville family, all the in-laws. But we're not here to praise Richard III. We're simply here to bury him. So there are those bones, such as they are, and I'm not sure if they're still teaching it in archaeology school at the University of Leicester, but
I think they are.
he's known. Well, they're very proud of it if you were in the Chamber of Commerce. There he is, Henry. And remember, he has Welsh connections. He has English connections. You have the tree. You can learn this. And you say, and now what's missing? I know. Do we want romance? No, we want power and connections. But it would be nice to have romance. But as far as I'm aware, then this will be shocking. There were no special friends. I know. I mean, seems a little boring, but he got a lot on his plate. And the person was none other than the sister of Richard III. And you say, as they would say in a Shakespearean play, what ho? How about that? What you do in politics. Elizabeth of York is amazing to me. Guess what, sis? We've got a special surprise for you. You're marrying Henry. And you know why? So you can create historical significance. I mean, it seems very strange. They were happily married, quite fruitful, lots of fruit. We can talk about that next time. But all of this is to say, essentially, this was a very important political marriage. I know, connecting those roses. Yeah. You're a Yorkist, I'm a Lancastrian. Give me a big kiss. Yeah, I mean, that's the way it seems. And that's the way in the Shakespearean historical plays they will make it. You'll see them two come forward on the stage at the end of the act, and it's like, and now it's a brave new world. Excuse me, Huxley, but you get the idea of Tudor happiness, because we're now going to have two of them together, and may they never be apart. You come here, you big Lancastrian. Yeah, you beautiful Yorkist. I mean, it's a little overdone, but you get the idea. Now, if you don't like it, you know there's a suite in the tower waiting for you, because this is the way it goes. I mean, Elizabeth Woodville, she thought, because remember, have you thought about this? Now, I don't want to hurt your brain, but because you may need an aspirin after this. Elizabeth Woodville would have been her sister-in-law. Have you thought about that? You will. Perhaps driving later, it'll hit you. You say, would she really want to marry him? Apparently so. But she did it for the cause. And, of course, some very important people will come out of this union, one of whom was somewhat large and somewhat significant, who needs no introduction to you. But we'll stop there and start on Henry VII and the Tudors next time. Thank you very much. Appreciate you.